Good morning, good afternoon, or good are in the world. Welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Carl Anthony, and this is AutoVision News Radio Live at AutoSens and InCabin Europe 2024. We are joined by Daniel Shwartzberg, Director of Business Development and Systems Solutions at Valens Semiconductor. In this role, Daniel is responsible for ensuring customer success at the technical level, working with OEMs and Tier 1s worldwide to bring innovative next-gen EE architectures to the market. In total, Daniel brings more than 30 years of experience, predominantly within the semiconductor industry, to his work with Valens. In addition to being an industry expert on the APHI standard, Daniel holds a master's degree in engineering and a bachelor's degree with honors in electrical and electronic engineering from the University of Hertfordshire in the United Kingdom. Daniel, welcome back to AutoSens and InCabin. Good to see you, friend.
Likewise, it's so good to be back and always a pleasure talking to you, Carl. Thanks.
Last time we spoke in May, and in the description and the comments to this interview is a link to recorded with Daniel during AutoSens and InCabin in Detroit in May of 2024. And Daniel, the conversation we were having at that time was, would OEMs embrace the APHI standard? Would they sign on and raise their hand and say, I want to be part of this? And that was kind of where we left the discussion. However, that's now happened because in September, it was announced that Valens had achieved 3 automotive design wins from European OEMs for its VA7000 series. Those are MIPI APHI chipsets. So, right. Daniel, first, congratulations on the news.
Much. Thank you. Yes.
And tell us how that all came to fruition.
Listen, I mean, huge news for Valens, huge news for the automotive industry as a whole.
Yes.
You know, you wait for a bus to come along and then 3 come at once. It really was a hat trick of successes.
Yes.
There's 3 design wins at the European OEMs. APHI is a standard. The OEMs have long been calling for a standardized SerDes solution.
Yes.
And here we are now with that technology available. A matter of time before the first design wins, the first OEM adoptions would come. So they realize the value that a standard brings. They realize that the robustness of the system, the robustness of APHI as a technology. And as I say, it was only a matter of time before it happened. So we're delighted to have these 3 design wins, the first 3 design wins for APHI chipsets already under the belt. I think it cements APHI really as the technology for high-speed SerDes connectivity in the industry. And we look forward to this being the starting point, right? So this is just our first step in this wonderful standard into the industry.
It feels like a tipping point of sorts, Daniel, and that this might be the beginning of, say, a coalescing point in the industry around this connectivity standard. It feels like at this tipping point. It feels like we're here.
I totally agree with you. And because the industry until this point really has been facing the challenges of running with proprietary legacy SerDes technologies. Proprietary means single sourced. All of the troubles of the supply chain of semiconductors into the automotive industry that came out of the COVID pandemic has made single source proprietary dirtier words than ever before. So to be able to finally get your hands on a standard technology with an ecosystem behind it of interoperable players really puts all of those worries, all of those concerns about being left high and dry because you can only buy your chips from one vendor. Suddenly that all goes away. The tipping point has happened. The adoptions into the OEMs are occurring. And like I say, we expect to see many, many more in the future.
Right. As a standard, one of APHI's key advantages is an ecosystem of interoperable suppliers, which is what we've been talking about. One of the many benefits of APHI. Daniel, from your vantage point, how is APHI progressing in terms of, let's say, proving its interoperability among various suppliers of silicon?
Absolutely. So, of course, APHI is a standard, and anybody who follows that standard, the products will interoperate. if you take a walk around our booth here at the show today,
Yes.
you will see a wall of products that all have AFI embedded in them. This is a huge ecosystem. It's growing very, very rapidly, almost on a week-by-week basis. If you just go back to May when we last spoke, there were so many new products that we simply didn't talk about back then. And what we show here are the public announcements.
Right.
But it's platform vendors, it's camera vendors. When we last spoke, Carl, we talked about the Continental FSC 300. That's
I remember.
Camera belt platform. So it's almost all of the camera guys. It's test equipment vendors, but it's also silicon companies. And Valens are the first to bring AFI silicon to the market. Our products are now, I should mention, fully PPAP. So in other words, our chipsets are released to production. Those are going to be rolling out to those OEMs for SOP in 2026. But we see other vendors emerging. I can tell you there's around about half a dozen silicon companies who are publicly speaking and publicly showing silicon.
Yes.
And in fact, we've already gone through our first round of interoperability testing with those vendors, running up to 8 gigabit per second links, PAM4 signal link scheme, and we see that interoperability right there. The OEMs and the tier ones now they can come to Valens. They'll be able to go to other vendors, and it's going to work.
Right.
The MIPI Alliance has released their compliance testing specification document, which means that there's now a form ensuring the products meet the requirements of the standard. So not only are the silicon vendors there, not only are all of the various tier ones there with AFI products, but now there's a spec that allows us to ensure that interoperability is not just a buzzword, but it's really, truly happening. And as I say, we see that already from the silicon level and all the way up to the platforms and the cameras and the radars.
Right, and that's true. It's so much more than just a buzzword or just some obscure term. We're seeing this play out in real time. Daniel, similar to this, just to tag on to this train of thought, what else is there about AFI that is attracting these OEMs, or maybe just attracting other companies in the space that are going to design products around AFI technology, or that want to design products around AFI technology?
Yeah, and as I said, there's legacy solutions, and okay, so where do you place your bets? What do you choose? So first of all, it is a standard, and again, I cannot stress that highly enough. It's a standard, interoperable ecosystem, multi-vendor silicon, multi-silicon vendors, but it also allows for integration, right? So anyone who has access to the spec, it's a MIPI spec, I should mention. Of course, it's also adopted by the IEEE, so the 400 or so members of the MIPI Alliance have access to this tech. So do the hundreds and hundreds of member companies of the IEEE.
Right.
So two of the biggest standardization bodies on the earth are backing this technology.
Yes.
But anybody who has access to it can develop silicon, and that means, for example, integration into the sensors. And we've talked about this in the past. Sony Semiconductors already in advanced stages of that work, integrating AFI directly into the sensor. Only possible with a standard technology, meaning need to put a discrete semiconductor. You won't have a chip for transmitting the data. It will come straight off the sensor as AFI. We announced second round of interoperability testing. We announced EMC testing with Sony Semiconductors. So from a standardization point, benefit.
Right.
From a technology benefit, from a technology viewpoint, there are many benefits. Very, very high bandwidth. Our first generation of chipset runs at 8 gigabits per second.
Right.
Our second generation will get you to 16 gig. And in fact, just last week, the MIPI Alliance announced the release of Spec 2.0 that takes you all the way to 32 gigabits per second of data in the downlink, which is all done over one cable. So this is one channel, 32 gigs, unprecedented amounts of bandwidth. So there's a lot of bandwidth, but there's also an enormous amount of robustness in the link in terms of resilience to electromagnetic interferences.
Yes.
And as we know, everyone watching knows, who's interested in automotive industry knows that there are very, very severe EMI implications with petrol engine or with electric vehicles, from within the vehicle, from without, cell phone towers, radio transmitters. All of this is generating a lot of noise. And where AFI really outperforms any other technology is that it is a digital-based system. So in other words, we have in the receive side hardwired digital signal processing algorithms to do things like noise cancellation.
Yes.
So in other words, other technologies rely, for example, on using shielded cables to keep the noise noise out from the system. A-PHY does, and our chips can actually run up to 4 gigabits per second. You heard that right, 4 gig on unshielded twisted pair. We accept the noise into the receiver and we cancel it out. We do that extremely effectively, and then we have a retransmission mechanism which operates at the physical layer. It's very fast to allow us to recover any lost data packets that occur. It's around 1 microsecond to cancel out the noise. We can get those packets back. Right. All of that is happening in the overhead on the link.
Right.
At the system level, what you see is fixed high bandwidth, multi-gigabit bandwidth that is fixed, and you have a latency, a delay across the link that is also fixed. So even though there's noise cancelling going on at the link level, even though there are retransmissions going on down there as well, from a system level, it's a steady stream of data with fixed latency.
Right.
And when you take all of these mechanisms together, that gives you a packet error rate of 10 to the minus 19, which is orders of magnitude better than what's available today. And in fact, we show it here, but I can tell you that a very big global OEM recently commissioned a technology shootout to show the resilience of A-PHY versus a proprietary technology and versus, let's call it a newly emerging competing standard. Let's call it that. They tested those three, and they found that A-PHY outperformed 20 times more noise resilience than those other technologies, the legacy and the emerging standard. A-PHY was 20 times more resilient to noise.
Yes.
That's an independent OEM that commissioned the testing to be done. So yes, so it's a standard, but it is a super high performance. We are talking mission critical systems.
Yes.
We are talking about high levels of ADAS on the road to full autonomy. You cannot accept second best. You cannot accept link errors. You cannot accept link failures when the life of the people inside the vehicle and around the vehicle are depending upon it.
Yes. Daniel, I've seen your Valens, where let's just call it a traditional camera system, and then there's the A-PHY solution there. And I remember we were standing together, and you had a dial, for lack of a better word, and you said, okay, I'm going to turn up the noise. I'm going to turn up the decibels. And you have the MIPI A-PHY standard here and the traditional system here. And, you would turn the dial a few decibels. There was nothing. And then all of a sudden, you would start to see in the traditional camera, you'd start to see sort of like the cracks in the picture, almost like you're trying to get TV reception with rabbit ears.
Exactly.
And then you kept turning the dial with the decibels. Right. The MIPI A-PHY is untouched. That picture is as clear as I'm looking at you right now. But the traditional system gets to a point where the decibels get so high, the noise gets so high that it freezes. And like you said, what if that's the mission critical automatic emergency braking camera? Absolutely. That in that one instance when those brakes needed to deploy, that camera is not. And I think that's for me when the light bulb came on and I said, this is really something. So with that being said, we know a lot about EMC performance through all the things we have talked about and through like the demos that you've shown me and you've shown many other attendees here at AutoSens. But how important is EMC performance for the industry when we really get down to, let's call it the brass tacks of it? How important is it, and what are we looking at? How does A-PHY compare with other technologies with that? And
again, it brings me back to what I said earlier. It is an ever-increasing challenge. And what happens is as the bandwidth on the, requirements go up, so the margins in the system goes down. When I mean margin, I mean is how close are we to the hairy edge that the noise is going to impact the data. Now, when the links were low speed, it wasn't too bad. But as the links go to high speed, and as I say, we're talking about gigabits of data and a need that is growing almost on a year-by-year basis, then the hairy edge becomes ever closer. So A-PHY really does address this, as I mentioned, through those digital mechanisms. The industry also, in its transition, these generate very high current flows in the vehicle, and those generate ever-increasing electromagnetic interferences. So as we see more EVs, we're going to see more problems. The problem is also compounded, by the way, in that, yes, other technologies, not A-PHY, but other technologies rely on using a shielded cable to prevent the noise getting in and attacking the receiver. Now, okay, great, shielding works, but shielding works very well when the cable is new. Mm-hmm. What happens, of course, is that cables age. And how do cables age? It's over time, it's through heat cycling, it's through flexing, it's through bending. And if we think about camera, doors, mirror replacements or surround view systems,
right.
cameras that are placed in the trunk.
Yes.
Every time you get into the car, you open and close the door, that's 2 flexes. You get out the car, that's another 2 flexes.
Right.
It's been proven in testing according to a very well-known European standard, the LV213 standard for cable aging, that the effectiveness of a shield drops off very, very rapidly as the cable ages. Okay, so what happens is you test for EMC when the cable is new, everything looks great. But when the cable ages, and it can be a matter of a year or two, the effectiveness of the shield goes down, and you'll begin to see noise getting injected into the system that when it was.
Right.
So maybe the issue isn't apparent when the vehicle is new, but I think the industry is waking up to the fact that what's waiting is the potential for a lot of warranty issues, and even worse, recall issues.
Right.
As the bandwidth goes up, the cables age, and the systems start to fail. With A-PHY, you don't need to worry about any of that. Shielded, unshielded, noise gets into the system, we can deal with it. Like I said, 20 times more noise immunity than competing legacy solutions and also newly emerging standards as well.
Right. I want to encourage all of our AutoSens and InCabin viewers and attendees to read all you can about the MIPI Alliance and to follow Valens on LinkedIn. MIPI Alliance has a LinkedIn page as well as a website, MIPI Alliance. Read all you can and just educate yourself, because it really is incredible stuff, Daniel.
Totally.
It really is incredible stuff.
Agreed.
And it's, as always, just a pleasure to talk with you.
You too.
Congratulations on the news in September. It's like you said, you're waiting for 1 bus, but 3 show up.
We didn't have to wait long, but they all came at once.
So 3 incredible design wins. Congratulations. I know how hard you and on every member of the Valens team works. So I know that it probably feels very good to have that. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Have a great rest of the show here in Barcelona. Safe travels back home, and let's do this again sometime soon.
Looking forward to it, Carl. Thank you so much.
More to come from AutoSens and InCabin Europe 2024 from the Fira de Barcelona alongside Daniel Shwartzberg. I'm Carl Anthony, AutoVision News Radio.